Hey everyone, this is Jeff Kinney, author of the Diary of Wimpy Kid series, and I will be appearing on Joe Zito's Du Bois podcast. Make sure you tune in.
Oh my God.
Roderick, can you explain what you're doing in this photo?
That's not me.
That's not you?
Nope.
Have you ever been on this ride?
It's way scary.
Well, my brother knows a guy whose second cousin's half-brother went on this ride and got decapitated.
No way.
It's true. I was working the ride that day. The car came down and his head wasn't in it. When you guys get to the top, make sure not to rock the car back and forth. That's how.
Greg, in case we don't make it, there's something I have to tell you. One time, I went to the bathroom and I didn't wash my hands.
One time, I used your toothbrush to get dog poop off my shoe.
Wait, what?
Hello everyone, my name is Joe, and welcome back to another episode of the Bois podcast. Today I'm joined by legendary author and illustrator of Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Raleigh Jefferson's spin-off series, Mr. Jeff Kinney. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, and thanks for being persistent. You've asked me more than once, and I was really touched by the fact that you're a true fan, so thank you very much for being persistent.
No problem. I got a couple questions for you, Jeff, if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so who was your biggest inspiration growing up? Who inspired you to become an author?
Oh, that's a really good question. You know, I became an author quite by accident. I didn't set out to become an author. I set out to become a newspaper cartoonist. I wanted to be like my heroes, Charles Schulz, who did Peanuts, and Bill Watterson, who did Calvin and Hobbes, Gary Larson, who did The Far Side, and there were a few others as well. So when I was in college, I got my comic in the daily newspaper at the University of Maryland, and it showed my path forward. I like getting that feedback. I like getting that love from fans. And so I wanted to be like my heroes. And so when I came out of college, that's when newspapers started to implode because the internet started to, was sort of born in that moment. And so the opportunities went really, they really shrunk for a cartoonist like me. And so I had to find a pivot. I had to find a different way to get my cartoons seen. And so I came up with the idea of putting my cartoons into a book. So you asked a simple question, who inspired me to become an author? Nobody really. I would say the closest that there is to my kind of work is Judy Blume, who wrote Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, Freckle Juice, books like that, which were realistic but funny stories about, elementary and middle school age kids.
Oh, I like that. I have like I said, you're very, very talented. I love your work, Mr. Kinney. Jeff.
Thank you so much. I don't know how talented I am, actually. It's like, I think about that from time to time. As an artist, I really the reason I couldn't break into newspaper comics is because I'm not a fine artist, right? If you look at Peanuts, or if you look at Calvin and Hobbes especially, you can see that they can do something that I cannot in my wildest dreams do. So I had to come up with a style that matched the age of my character. So, my style is simpler. The lines are uniform width. I never had a control over my pen like those guys did. And so I had to kind of find the place where I sort of maxed out in terms of the age that I was representing myself as both a writer and an illustrator.
Wow. It's really cool. I like your style. It's like your style. So I really like it, Jeff.
I learned a lot about cartooning and drawing as Greg Heffley, because I learned that cartooning is the art of simplification, right? Why is cartooning different than illustration? Well, illustration is sort of descriptive. It's like painting a picture. It's supplementing the text in a way. Usually the text kind of describes the scene, and then the illustration re-describes the scene. Cartooning is really different, because cartooning is like you're trying to distill something to its absolute essence. Even if it's a really complicated scene, you're trying to not use any more lines than you really need to. So I learned a lot by trying to draw as a 7th grader.
I like that. Good thinking. Wow. I like that, Jeff. Okay. Now, how did publishing your first book change your process of writing?
Oh, that's a good question. How did publishing my first book change my process of writing? Well, my process has changed and changed and changed again. My first, the way that I wrote my jokes at first was that I remembered. I just took everything funny that had happened to me in my life, and I wrote it down and collected it all in one place. It took me 4 years to write down all the funny things that happened to me. And after that, I started thinking and using my imagination. And that was a really slow process. I would sit there and I had like a video game rocker. I still have it, where I could sit there and kind of rock and think. And the jokes, sometimes I'd think for 3 or 4 hours and wouldn't come up with a single joke. Then I started taking really long walks, like sometimes 2, 3, 4 hours even. That didn't really work. And then I came up with this new system, which is called systematic inventive thinking, which is a whole different thing, and that generates jokes like that. So it's changed again.
Wow, I like that. Okay. Now, what's your favorite of like all time underrated novel? Your favorite
Underrated album?
Novel. Sorry.
There's a book called oh gosh, it's called oh no, I should know this. It's not a symphony of fools. Hey Julie, I'm calling to my wife.
Okay.
What's that book that Patrick and I like so much? It's not a symphony of fools. It's something of idiots. We're gonna figure this out.
All good.
We'll figure this out. Anybody who's listening to this right now. So there's this book, which we're gonna figure out the title to in a moment, and it was written by a guy who tried to get it published years and years ago, like in the 60s or 70s, and it was and then he actually died without it having been published. I think he killed himself actually, and then afterwards his mother shopped it around to different editors. And then she found an editor, and she's like, I think there's something here. I think there's something really special here. And the editor agreed and published it. So it's a book that's basically unedited, right? It's like too long, but it is so funny and so sharp in its writing. And the guy who wrote it never got to see it published, but we're gonna figure that out. Joe, just look up. It's like a collection of idiots or something like that, but I should know the name of this. My wife will look it up.
All good.
All right. Okay. All right, I'm ready for your next question.
Okay. So how many hours a day do you write and draw? Do you think?
I write and draw. It really depends on the day. Some days not at all. And then some days, like today, what I'm doing is I have a new Raleigh Jefferson book coming out. It's called Raleigh Jefferson's Awesome Friendly Spooky Stories. If I was in a drawing phase on that, I would draw I'd be at my desk for about 16 hours a day. And right now I'm actually drawing we're going to do a drive-through tour where kids can stay in their cars with their parents and then drive through these kind of spooky scenes. So today I'm illustrating all of the spooky scenes, and it's going to take me, I'll probably be at my desk for about 10 hours today.
Wow. I like that. I can't wait till it comes out. I'll probably put that, next up in the line.
I hope you like it. Did you read the second Raleigh Jefferson book?
Yes, I like them all. Like honestly, like I can't choose like a favorite. It's like choosing like a favorite kid. A little bit.
Here we go. I got it wrong. It's a Confederacy of Dunces. If you ever, it's like real literature, right? It's thick, but it's really different. And in fact, the audiobook is so good. It's so good. The voices are great. So that is, I think, a really underrated novel. I think it should be taught and read in every high school, but it's a little off the beaten track.
I think I've actually read that. No joke, in school.
And it's maybe you did. It's about a guy who it's about this kind of really messy guy who lives in New Orleans with his mother, and he gets into all sorts of misadventures. Really good book.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how do you select the names of your characters like Greg, Rowley?
Mostly by sound. So Greg is a little different because my mother almost named each one of her 3 kids Greg, but she never did. And then the rest of them are sounds. Rowley sounds like a friendly kind of name. It's actually a town name in Massachusetts, Rowley. It just sounds friendly. Roderick has got that kind of hard, sound to it. It might as well be the word rock and roll in that, that kind of Roderick. And then Manny, I think, is kind of, it's a subversion, right? Manny is like, he's so small. The first time I ever heard the name Manny, I was in middle school, and I didn't know it was short for Emmanuel. I just thought somebody named their kid Manny because, like, they were saying he was like a man, like man, the guy. And so I thought that would be a really good name for a really little guy. But most of the time, Fregley, I had heard that name growing up, and I thought it sort of sounded like freckly or, something like that. So I had this idea of this red-haired kid with freckles, and on and on.
That's really smart, Jeff. I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of phonetic in a way. So Roderick almost was Dedrick, but then I heard somebody once pronounce it Diedrich, and I was like, no, that's not, that's not there.
I like that. Okay. Now, do you hide any like secrets or secret Easter eggs that only people you know or a few people will find in your books?
Yeah. Here's one that nobody knows yet. Is that, well, one of my books actually literally has Easter eggs. You probably picked it up. Hard Luck is a book with that features lots of basically I put Easter eggs all over that book. So if you look throughout that book, there must be 100 of them. There are literal Easter eggs in that book. There are, how about the Meltdown is really the big message about the Meltdown. It's about tribalism. It's actually about the 2016 elections in the United States. They're literally, the hill is divided into two, the people in the upper side of the hill and the people on the lower side. And then they build a wall across the middle of the hill to keep the people on the southern side out, so nobody really picks up on those major themes that I'm writing about. And then if you look, the pig disappeared, I think, in book maybe 11 or 10, or I think book 11. And however, he has showed up in the last 2 books. It's just that nobody's really noticed.
Wow, I like those. Those are cool little hidden secrets there.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now, what's your favorite book in the whole series, and do you have a favorite character?
Yeah, my favorite character is definitely Rowley. I think he's really fleshed out. I like that he's a kid who likes being a kid. He's uncorruptible, so he's a really good fit with Greg because Greg is trying to change Rowley, but Rowley can't and won't change. My favorite book, I kind of have a complicated answer to that. I think like book 9 is where I started to get my act together. I started, The Long Haul is where I started to be able to tell a more cinematic story. I think my books have gotten a little bit more sophisticated as they've gone on, but they've lost a little bit of the charm of being new, So in the original books, they're really messy. The narratives aren't really strong, but the jokes are really fresh. And once you get into something that's a little bit more cinematic, it gets a little bit more formulaic. And so then you're trying to hang jokes onto the narrative. So it's a little bit of a balance. I think I'm a better storyteller now, but I think I had more jokes in my arsenal back then.
Oh, so like back in the day, right?
Yeah, actually, I'll say this. I think my favorite book is Raleigh Jefferson's Awesome Friendly Adventure. I think it's really smart, and I think it's fresh and sort of like innocent and a little bit wild. So I really enjoyed writing that one.
Excited. Okay. Now, if you could tell your younger self, like your younger writing self, what would it be?
Some advice, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, things turned out for me the way that I would have hoped, or couldn't have even thought of in my wildest dreams. So I think I wouldn't tell myself anything because I'd hope to kind of get onto the path that I was on. But I think that in a way, what I tell my kids now is that especially when you're a young person like yourself, like 18, 19 years old, you are idealistic and you see things sort of in black and white, right? It's easy to see things in black and white. And then as life goes on, you learn that life is kind of gray. There are a lot of, you could have a really firm position right now that might change over time based on your experiences. So I would just encourage myself to be open-minded and kind.
Like that. Good advice to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If you never became like an author or illustrator, what would your career be?
I had it actually for a long time. I was the developer. I created that website Pop Tropica, which was it was a virtual world. It wasn't like a video game like Grand Theft Auto or something like that. It was something simpler. But it was really far-reaching, and it was very ambitious in its storytelling. Had lots of different styles. I think I would have been really happy doing that for a really long time, and I did get to do that.
Wow, you got to do your dreams.
Pretty much all of them, yeah.
Oh, I like that. Okay, is there anything you would like to promote and shout out?
Sure. I just finished the book. Raleigh Jefferson's Awesome Spooky Stories, and it's really different. It's short stories. They're all it's really strange because when you write from Raleigh's point of view, you have to use this kind of innocent style that, it's not very sophisticated. But then the stories, they're scary stories, and they're a little bit twisted. Like, for example, there's one story called The Nap, in which an older woman who lives alone, who has this kind of rotten family, she takes a nap one day and her family comes across her and they think she's dead. And so she's buried alive. And then she gets out. And then the rest of the story is kind of that she's always, making them feel guilty about having buried her alive, So the stories are sort of really different, and they're not very Rowley-like in a way, but they were really fun. And each story is really different from the last.
Oh. Do you have if you don't mind for the viewers at home, do you have the cover or anything we could show?
You know what? I let somebody borrow that, so I can't show it right now. But you know what I'll do? I'll pull it up on my iPad and show you that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. And what's next for you? Tell me, are you going to go to college? Or are you going to stay at home? Or are you going to do this as a career? What do you think?
Well, I might take a year off because COVID, and then go back once COVID's over with, and pursue a career in writing, and because that's my passion. Love to write.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that taking a year off for COVID is not a bad idea. Let's see. Here we go. So this is Raleigh Jefferson's. It's kind of a little terrifying. He's falling into this kind of pile of zombies.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's what's next for me.
And then is it a TV show or a little movie, the animated thing? Remember
we're working on Disney Plus. So Disney Plus, it's going to be, it's all animated. It's 3D animation. Looks a little bit different than what you're used to, but I think it looks good. It's a good representation in 3D of this world, and I'm involved in every step. Every 3D object, I get to have some sort of say or kind of help shape it, and it's going to be really fun.
I'm definitely going to tune into that. That's going to be exciting. Can't wait. Well, I thank you all so much for watching. Thank you again, Jeff, for being an awesome and amazing guest.
Well, thank you very much. You were great. You're a great interviewer.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody, and stay awesome. And stay awesome, Jeff.
Thanks, man. Take care.